The Eagles may have just hinted at some of their next big plans, and it's a little surprising. As with the focus in the offseason switching over to the NFL draft, some information has already been leaked about who the Birds could be targeting, and again, it's not exactly what I expected. That said, why are there still a lot of directions the Eagles could go, and why is one of the NFL's top remaining free agents still very much in play? Meanwhile, we got to hear from some of the Birds' newest players, along with Zack Baun, who made a bold statement about his future in Vic Fangio's defense, plus DeVonta Smith had some awesome comments about Jalen Hurts that I'm sure you'll love. So we're going to talk about that and all the other latest news starting right now. Eagles free agency has been less than thrilling for most Philly fans, with them of course losing a bunch of good players, while the players they have signed aren't exactly the big time additions a lot of people were hoping for. Now, personally, I expected pretty much all this, and I'm actually a fan of a lot of the signings they've made, with a few in particular standing out, namely Azeez Ojulari. However, my favorite signing actually came way back before all the craziness started, as fans are seeming to forget that the Birds actually won free agency before it even began when they were able to re-sign their All-Pro and Defensive Player of the Year candidate linebacker Zack Baun to a 3-year, $51 million deal. I mean, I had said before free agency that if the Eagles could just re-sign Baun, who was the one free agent they couldn't afford to lose, then that would have been a successful free agency, and that's exactly what they did. So I don't know about you guys, but I'm happy. And on Wednesday, the deal was made official, with Baun putting pen to paper while also holding a press conference to discuss his new contract. And in that presser, Baun made it clear that Philly is always the place that he wanted to be, while he also expressed excitement for what's to come.
Yeah, I mean, I really actually didn't want to leave. Like, just what we built here, the culture here, and honestly, now that I'm thinking about it, I was just a piece of the puzzle that was put into a great culture already established. I just think about what we did in 1 year with so many new pieces, coaches and players included, and I think about my own personal development in that same sense, where if I can move off the ball and play inside linebacker and do what I did and that was kind of my starting point. I'm excited for this team and this defense moving forward. I'm really excited to continue to build on what we did last year.
Yeah, I mean, I'm certainly excited to see what Baun and this defense can do moving forward. And the Bald Eagle makes a good point. I mean, last year was the starting point, both for him just playing a new position in a new place, and it was also the starting point for a lot of the Eagles' other young guys on defense, and possibly, most notably, for defensive coordinator Vic Fangio. So, I'm excited to see how they can build off that and get better with a lot of the continuity that they're going to have. And for Baun specifically, I honestly think that his best ball could still be ahead of him, so I can't wait to see what he does next season. Also, a huge shout out to the sponsor of today's video, Turtle Beach. Turtle Beach is a company that sells headsets, controllers, and all sorts of gaming accessories across multiple platforms. And I've actually used one of their Xbox headsets for years now, and I've always been really happy with it. So I was absolutely thrilled when they reached out and offered to send me their wireless Stealth 700 headset. And I gotta say, this thing right here is pretty awesome. Now, the first thing I did was ran a game with our Eagles on Madden, and I immediately noticed how amazing the sound quality is, and the headset's 3D spatial audio feature immerses you right into whatever game you're playing. I mean, take a game like Fortnite, for example, which, to be clear, I absolutely suck at, but at least the 3D audio of the headset gives me an edge by helping me to know where the enemies are coming from. And that's not all, because on top of that, this headset is super comfortable, and with a whopping 80 hours of battery life, that means you can play for hours by yourself or with friends with no issue. Plus, the Stealth 700 headset has a crazy crossplay transmitting feature, meaning you can switch between different consoles with the click of a button, or you can also connect it to your phone as well. I mean, again, guys, I love this headset, so go to turtlebeach.com and use code PhillyFans for 10% off your entire order. Again, that's 10% off at turtlebeach.com with promo code PhillyFans, and afterwards, please let them know that I sent you, because that really helps support the channel. And again, thank you to Turtle Beach for sponsoring today's video. Moving on though, even with the continuity that they do have, starting with guys like Baun and Fangio, the Eagles are also going to have a lot of new faces on defense next season, and one of them, in veteran corner Adoree Jackson, was just introduced on Wednesday right after Baun's presser, and while he's not necessarily expected to be a starter or a guy that plays a huge role next season, he did make it clear that he's excited to be in Philly and he's going to do whatever it takes to contribute, including helping some of the young guys in the secondary, who he says he's already a pretty big fan of.
And being one of the oldest in the room is cool. It's a part of the game. So I appreciate being able to be in this position. The Lord has blessed me to have some longevity to be able to reach this age and now to be able to give back and help. And it's the same way the young guys can help me out, because they doing stuff that I probably never trained to do because it's just different times. So I'm excited for the opportunity.
Adoree, just wondering if you had a chance to really watch any of Quinyon Mitchell or Cooper DeJean last year and what your impressions of them were as rookies.
I'm not gonna lie, I really liked Mitchell. I remember saying it, I don't know what game we were watching on tape. I'm like, damn, I haven't seen a rookie play that well. You know, it's been a while. And then Cooper doing his thing. Yeah, that was a trip. Because you know they had the thing about first white DB to play since whatever. So to see him thrive and do his thing, at being a DB, it made me smile. So it's always cool to see somebody else, especially in the position that you're in, knowing how tough it is, and the stuff that you go up against, and to see those two thrive, especially at a young age, it put a smile on my face.
It will be interesting to see exactly what kind of role Jackson ends up having for the Birds defense this year, but I will say, it does seem like he has the right attitude. I love what he said about Q and Coop, and also that he said he's willing to help mentor the young guys as much as he can, as, you know, he's easily the most experienced guy in that room now, so that's obviously very valuable, and he also still seems to be able to play a little bit. So again, we'll see what kind of role he has next year, but it was certainly a good first impression for Jackson in Philly. And speaking of first impressions, there's now a couple other guys that are going to be hoping to make good ones with the Eagles as well, as the Birds officially have scheduled a few more of their top 30 visits leading into the NFL draft, and it's pretty interesting. Now, if you don't know, each team gets to formally visit in person with 30 prospects before the draft every year, and for the Eagles, these tend to be pretty important considering that all their first 3 picks in each of the last 3 drafts have been guys that they've had top 30 visits with, and in general, the Eagles typically have top 30 visits with a high percentage of their eventual draft picks, so whoever they visit with definitely has a chance to end up an Eagle when the draft rolls around in April. Now, the Birds already reportedly had a visit or have one scheduled with NC State offensive tackle Anthony Belton, which I talked about way back when it was reported during the Combine, but on Wednesday, more names were added to the list. First, with Oregon offensive tackle Josh Conerly Jr. And Conerly is a very interesting prospect considering that he's actually a former running back, so he's super athletic, and that's translated to his game as an offensive lineman as he's got great footwork and he moves really well in space. Plus, he's been called an elite pass protector by evaluators, and while his run blocking and strength could use work, he's still a really solid prospect with a lot of potential and is considered a guy that could start at both tackle or guard in the league pretty early on. And with him being projected as a late first to second round pick, he could fall right into the Eagles' laps at 32, or they could potentially trade down if they really wanted to go get him. And a similar thing could be said about the Eagles' other reported top 30 visit from Wednesday, being Purdue offensive lineman Marcus Mbow, as he's a guy that's projected as a mid-second round pick, so again, he's in that range where the Eagles could trade down from 32 to try and get him. And this is another guy that is super athletic and moves really well in space. He's got good technique, he's versatile, having started games both tackle and guard in college. Plus, he's got a physicality and aggressiveness to his game that's pretty awesome. Now, he is a bit on the smaller side and has shorter arms, so that could limit him at the NFL level. Plus, there's still things that definitely need to be cleaned up and worked on, but overall, Mbow is another really solid day 2 prospect that would be a good addition to the Birds' offensive line. And then moving on, the Eagles had another visit on Thursday with yet another offensive line prospect, this time in Iowa State's Jalen Travis, who is more of a late round prospect, so probably not really as significant as the others probably, but still it is interesting considering that although he is raw and has a lot of developing to do, Travis has all the physical tools to be good as he stands at 6'7", 315 pounds, yet he still moves very well. Plus, he's also a high character guy with leadership traits, and if we know anything about Jeff Stoutland, it's that he is very good at developing prospects that may be raw but have a lot of potential. So Travis will definitely be another name to watch for the Birds as we get closer to the draft. Now, obviously, just because the Eagles meet with a guy doesn't mean that they're going to draft him, but it is interesting to see how they've utilized their top 30 visits so far, with all of them obviously being with offensive linemen. So it certainly seems like there's a pretty good chance that the Birds are going to take one early in this draft, which, you know, as much as the Eagles do love offensive linemen and linemen in general, it's still pretty interesting considering that most of these guys that they visited with are primarily listed as tackles, and Lane Johnson just signed an extension and made it clear that he wants to play 3 more years if his body holds up. So, you know, I didn't really think drafting Lane's replacement was going to happen this year, but it seems there's a chance if these top 30 visits tell us anything. Or the other possibility is that they like some of these guys as guards at the NFL level, and they want to add some competition for guys like Tyler Steen or Kenyon Green. But, you know, again, the draft is over a month away, and the Eagles very well may not end up taking an offensive lineman early. So we'll see how it all plays out and what other guys the Eagles decide to bring in on top 30 visits. Moving on though, we got some news regarding some potential NFL rule changes on Wednesday, first with the Green Bay Packers officially proposing to ban the tush push. And look, I've already went in depth on this topic in a video a while back, so I'm not going to do it here, but basically my take is,
if everybody could do it, everybody would do it.
I mean, it's not like it's an unstoppable play no matter what, as the fact of the matter is that the Eagles just simply do it better than everybody else, including the Packers, who, by the way, have tried it and haven't had the same luck, or skill, should I say, as the Birds. I mean, again, I think this whole thing is stupid because the Eagles should not be punished for doing something better than the rest of the league, plus it hasn't caused any injuries like some people would argue, so hopefully it doesn't get banned, but either way, the Eagles will still be just fine and their QB sneak will still be deadly. Getting over to a rule change that the Eagles themselves proposed though, it's a rather important one, as Philly is lobbying for the NFL's new playoff overtime rules to be implemented for regular season games as well, which, if you need a refresher, means that both teams would get a possession in overtime no matter what, even if the team who got the ball first scored a touchdown, which under the current rules means that that team would just win the game. And, personally, I love this idea and think that that's the way it probably should have been for a long time, so I hope it gets passed, but I'm curious to know your guys' thoughts on this. And then moving on, the Lions also proposed a pretty significant rule change, basically to just get rid of the current playoff format where the division winners get the top 4 seeds, and instead still have the 4 division winners make the playoffs, but instead do the seeding based on who has the best records. So, for example, last season the Vikings were the 5 seed, but their 14-3 record was better than both the Rams and Buccaneers, who were the division winners. So, under the new proposed rules, the Vikings would be the 3 seed instead of the 5. Now, personally, I kind of hate this idea just because it makes winning your division so much less important, but I get why some people do also like it, so I'm curious to know your guys' thoughts again. Getting back to the draft though, it is interesting what we've seen so far from the Eagles, with it looking like they are very likely to take an offensive lineman at some point early on, possibly to eventually replace Lane Johnson. Now again, that's not confirmed and anything could happen, but it does seem like that's the direction we're headed. However, even with that, I still think it's very likely that Philadelphia stays on the defensive side of the ball early, possibly, probably with their first round pick. And if that is the case, then my money would be on them taking a lineman, whether that's an edge rusher or a defensive tackle, with this just being a really deep class for both of those positions, and also with the Birds losing key guys on the line in free agency. But there's also a number of other positions that they could possibly look at on defense as well, and the one everyone seems to be talking about right now is safety, as of course the Birds just traded away CJ Gardner-Johnson. Now, in a recent video, I talked about Sidney Brown and made a case for him to be the next starter, but if the Birds don't feel confident in him, there's definitely a couple of prospects they could look at early in the draft, namely Malachi Starks out of Georgia or Nick Amanwari out of South Carolina. So these are all possibilities to consider, and I want to be talking a lot more about these guys and many more prospects as we get closer and closer to the draft, so make sure you guys subscribe and you have your notifications turned on so you don't miss anything. However, one possibility I've seen brought up recently in relation to the draft involves a guy who Eagles fans just can't seem to stop talking about over the past couple of off seasons, and that is none other than veteran free agent safety Justin Simmons, who of course spent some of the best years of his career under Eagles defensive coordinator Vic Fangio and defensive backs coach and pass game coordinator Christian Parker. And Simmons also made it known just last week that he would love to play in Philly if the opportunity presented itself. So, safe to say, there has been a lot of rumors about this, and the most recent one comes from Kendall Beck on Twitter, who theorized that since Simmons seemingly already wants to play in Philly, then maybe Howie Roseman already reached out to him and told him just to hang tight until after the draft. That way, signing him wouldn't count against the compensatory pick formula, which is certainly an interesting theory. Plus, you would then have to think about whether that would affect the Eagles' chances of drafting a safety early or not, but regardless of that, there is no denying that Simmons coming to Philadelphia makes a lot of sense. Of course, with the clear interest and familiarity, but also because the Eagles apparently almost already spent significant money to bring in a safety earlier in the offseason in Justin Reed. So now with Reed in New Orleans, Simmons again makes a ton of sense as a potential target. Now, whether he'd wait until after the draft, who knows, but this will certainly be a situation to monitor moving forward. Switching topics though, we also got some brief introductions from some of the newest Eagles on Thursday, with new tight end Kylan Granson, the once and again Eagle Patrick Johnson, and returner Avery Williams all officially signing their contracts in Philly.
Eagles Nation. What's going on, Philly? This is Patrick Johnson.
What's up, guys? This is Avery Williams, returner for the Eagles. Go Birds, baby.
I just signed my contract. So excited to be here. Super excited about being back and appreciate all the love. Go Birds.
Definitely happy to have all these guys, although they are smaller additions, but still excited to see how things go for them this year. Moving on though, we also got some awesome comments from DeVonta Smith recently, as he was just on the 7 p.m. in Brooklyn podcast where he spoke on his relationship with Jalen Hurts, and he absolutely praised QB1 and talked about their unbreakable bond.
Talk to me about you and Jalen's relationship.
So it was 2 reasons I went to Alabama. Jalen was one reason, and Coach Burns was the other reason. You know, every time I went up there, I was with Jalen. I knew Jalen, I knew Shy. They was the only 2 people I knew, so just being there, I was comfortable with him knowing that, okay, if I do go, he's going to be the quarterback. He's somebody I can relate to, somebody I have a relationship with. So I was like, okay, I'm cool with it. When I got drafted to Philly, man, I was happy as hell. Like, I got my dog here, you know. I know he was vouching for me, and it was just like, we about to pick up where we left off. It made me more comfortable being with him, someone that, you know, I had that relationship with, I kind of had a connection to, and just knowing that if I don't got nothing else in this city, I know I got him. And like, that's just made it so much easier for me. I feel like we're 2 guys that, you know, we've been proving people wrong our whole lives, and just continue doing it, do it at the biggest stage.
All of the Jalen Hurts talk, especially knowing him as long as you've had, about him being a quote unquote elite quarterback.
Slay said, you know, the big 4. For me, it's the big 5. And, you know, Jalen is in that 5. 4 that he named, and then I'm putting Jalen in there. To me, that's the big 5. I don't think it's a big 4. I think it's a big 5, honestly.
He got to be in there now.
Yeah, for sure.
I mean, you gotta love that, right? Like, Smitty could not have spoke higher of his quarterback there. And things like this, along with Nolan Smith's comments about Hurts not too long ago, show you just how much respect the guys in that locker room truly do have for their franchise QB.
Man, I'll say this about one. What I call him one, because he that one. Like, man, he do everything the right way. And then not only is during the times when people are waving stuff, man, he get us through there, no matter what. And even, yes, one is a great quarterback. He's not asked to do what Josh Allen does. Wanna know why? We got Saquon Barkley. We got offensive weapons. We got real people. So if you just go out there and play good football, and you play behind your defense, there's no reason we should lose.
Again, you just gotta love the praise coming from Hurts' teammates. And once again, just in case you need a reminder, Jalen Hurts is absolutely one of the elite quarterbacks in the NFL, and there's no question about it. Plus, breaking news just as I'm finishing this video up, the Eagles have lost another free agent, as now former Birds cornerback Avonte Maddox, who they drafted all the way back in 2018, has now signed with the Detroit Lions on a 1-year deal. And you know, this is really no surprise. I think we all saw that Maddox's time in Philadelphia was coming to an end, and I don't see any reason why the Eagles would have wanted to re-sign him, but still, he played for this team for a long time. At one point, he was really, really good, and he even made a big play during the Super Bowl, so good luck to him in Detroit. But again, his departure just speaks to the youth movement of this Eagles team, and specifically on defense and at the cornerback position, where now guys like Eli Ricks, for example, could get a bigger opportunity. Plus, it also seems like the Eagles could potentially take a corner in the draft at some point. So again, we'll just have to wait and see on that. And you guys know that I'm going to be continuing to cover all the Eagles news and developments throughout this entire offseason. So if you don't want to miss any of that, then make sure you subscribe and you have your notifications turned on. That way you don't miss when I upload any videos or go live. Trust me, you guys are not going to want to miss any of it. So make sure you do that. And also drop a like down below as well to show some support, because it really does help me out a ton. See if we can get to at least 700 likes on today's video. And also leave a comment down below just regarding anything that I talked about in this video. And also buy the Turtle Beach headphones now and get 10% off using my link down in the description. And also, if you want to watch another Eagles video, you can check this one out right here. And now with all that being said, that's pretty much all I got for this one, guys. So thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.